There's plenty of things that we left behind in the 70s. Shag carpeting, sideburns, the Vietnam War, Danny Masterson.
That's all I have to say about that.
Stuff we've mercifully outgrown. In society and pop culture, the NFL too has drastically changed since the era of disco, Watergate, and bell-bottom jeans. Some changes have been for the best, others, well, maybe not. However, some things from the bygone era would get insta-canceled today. Let's see what that was all about. 70s NFL that wouldn't fly today is coming up right after this. It's finally here! Summertime. Great fun, good weather, girls in bikinis, and of course, getting to all that fun. Thank goodness we can actually do that this year, and if you're going to be stuck in a car, plane, or even a bus, you better have some noise-isolating earbuds attached to the side of your head. That's why I wear Raycons. High-quality, bass-boosting, 6 hours of playtime and seamless Bluetooth pairing Raycons. Raycons are worn by Snoop Dogg and come in a variety of colors and fits. And they come with a risk-free 45-day return policy. This summer, we're renting an RV, and I'm 100% bringing my Raycons so that I can drown out my complaining kids and listen to books on tape. So after this video, you can support this channel by going to buyraycon.com/5 points from the link below and get 15% off your purchase. Again, go to buyraycon.com/5 points from the link below and kick your summer off with a 15% discount. Brought to you by Raycon. The Steelers' dynasty was bookended by two plays that might have been called differently if subjected to instant replay, something we now take for granted. It all started in December of 1972 when the Steelers beat the Raiders with the miracle last-second touchdown known as the Immaculate Reception. But would the play have stood in 2021? Limited footage shows that Terry Bradshaw's pass hit either Raiders safety Jack Tatum or his intended target Frenchie Fuqua. If it had hit Fuqua, the play would have been illegal, meaning Franco Harris's scoop and score would have been all for naught. But the legality of that play pales in comparison to the controversy that arose in the third quarter of the 1979 AFC Championship game between the same Pittsburgh Steelers and the underdog Houston Oilers. An apparent touchdown pass from Dan Pastorini to Mike Renfro had been called incomplete, costing the Oilers a chance to play in what would have been their only Super Bowl. The pass, a clear toe-tap touchdown, was the turning point in the fight for instant replay, which was finally instituted in 1986. Had replay been around in the 70s, the course of NFL history would have been altered significantly. Would this Super Bowl 12 touchdown pass to Butch Johnson have stood up to scrutiny? Calvin Johnson probably has an opinion. Replay review might slow down the game, but it ensures that justice is served, and that's all that matters. In 1973, ABC's Monday Night Football made a visit to Denver, Colorado, where the Broncos were hosting the Oakland Raiders. Former Cowboys quarterback and color commentator Don Meredith was clearly enjoying his stay.
Thank you a lot, Howard and Hi, from Mile High Stadium in the Mile High city of Denver, Colorado. And I tell you, that confetti is really nice and out of sight. I really have had fun.
It was hard to blame Don for showing up to the booth higher than a kite. That was life in the early 70s. Just look at the intro to Monday Night Football. You could get baked just looking at it. Dandy Don wasn't the only broadcaster who liked to get after it during a game. Just look at Alex Karras try to make it through a lead-up to a 1976 Monday night game between the Patriots and the Jets. Howard Cosell himself would slur his way through many a Monday night game.
Not on camera now. We're in Philadelphia at Franklin Field.
Like on Mad Men, drinking wasn't just reserved for the guys in the cheap seats.
But after I got into the broadcasting business was when I made a serious effort toward drinking.
Who knows, maybe if Joe Buck had had a couple, he would have joined Randy Moss in a disgusting act back in 2005.
Hey, that is a disgusting act.
When Michael Jordan shaved his head for the first time, it marked a new day for men. Bald was officially beautiful. Well, not for everyone. But this revelation didn't come until after many professional football players rocked some of the worst head lettuce you'll ever see. You might as well start with the most accomplished QB of the decade, Terry Bradshaw, whose hairline hung on by a thread like a juggling catch by Lynn Swann. Speaking of incredible catches, here's one of the best receivers of the decade, Hall of Famer Fred Biletnikoff, whose hairline was missing like Kenny Stabler the night before a big game. And who could forget Steelers legend Rocky Bleier, an American hero who lost more than his right foot while he was in Vietnam. Unfortunately, not everyone was blessed with beautiful locks like 1976 MVP Burt Jones, but if the 70s taught us anything, it was to grab the clippers and make like MJ. If you watch a classic game from the 70s, depending on the venue, you might be wondering why they decided to play football on a 100-yard long ping pong table. Oh, that's not a table, it's turf, Astroturf, which cannot be legally described as grass. Astroturf, also known as chemgrass, was of course named after its first professional home, the Houston Astrodome. Astroturf was cheap, saved many hours of labor, and made the players significantly faster than natural grass. It only had one major downside. It was essentially sandpaper over concrete and hurt like Astroturf first made an appearance in the late 60s but rose to prevalence in the early to mid 70s, even serving as a playing surface for Super Bowl VIII. But what Astroturf saved in money, it made up for in human misery. The harder surface was hell on players' knees and created a higher number of non-contact injuries. Astroturf caused higher traction between the field and players' cleats, making players move quicker. That extra artificial speed created serious problems when the player stopped or changed direction, leading to torn ACLs, Achilles, and other serious injuries. Not to mention, Astroturf was harder than its grassy descendants, and every fall hurt that much more. After protests from the NFLPA, stadiums eventually evolved past Astroturf in favor of softer, synthetic grass. But for the Warriors of the 70s, it was too late. Guys like Dan Dierdorf were essentially crippled by the playing surface. Take a quick scan through the Rookie of the Year awards handed out from 1971 to 1979. With the exception of 1 year, every Rookie of the Year was given to a running back. Take a look at the MVPs. They only started handing out the award halfway through the decade, but 3 of the first 5 were given to running backs. 2 to Earl Campbell and the other 1 to Walter Payton. It seems sacrilege today, but running backs were considered one of the most important positions on the field back in the 70s. Today, 2 of the great cardinal sins of team building are 1, drafting a running back in the first round, and 2, giving a running back a second contract. In the 70s, they let it fly. The first rounds of the drafts that decade were littered with not only running backs, but fullbacks too. In the 1976 draft, 4 of the first 8 players picked were running backs. A year later, the first 2 selections were also backs, USC's Ricky Bell and Pitt's Tony Dorsett. Earl Campbell, the future MVP twice over, was drafted first overall by the Oilers in '78, and no one even thought to take a quarterback until the 17th overall pick. That was future Super Bowl MVP Doug Williams, by the way. Part of the devaluation of running backs comes down to understanding their shelf life and the idea that a good offensive line is more important to a running game than the back himself. But it also illustrates the difference in how the game was played back then versus how it's played today. The NFL featured plenty of talented passers in the 70s, but these were the days when defensive backs could literally destroy receivers like pissed off Walmart employees, making the passing game less efficient than it is today. Only in 1978, when the league instituted the Mel Blount rule, meaning no heavy contact past 5 yards, did teams see an uptick in passing. Until then, it made more sense to make a living on the ground, and teams like the 1972 Dolphins rode their running backs to Super Bowls. In fact, the year they repeated, Dolphins starting quarterback Bob Greasy threw for just 1,422 yards in 13 starts. Larry Zonka, Mercury Morris, and Jim Kick all combined for 2,214 yards on the ground. Oh, and if you think we're forgetting about a certain 70s running back, don't you worry. Hello YouTube world, it's yours truly. The 1970s were a special time when Caitlyn Jenner was adorning Wheaties boxes, Michael Jackson was still black, and O.J. Simpson was known for his accomplishments on the field. Before the juice fell victim to cancel culture, he was a USC standout, winning the Heisman in 1968 and becoming the top pick by the Buffalo Bills a year later. Until 1994, O.J. Simpson was known for a few different things. Number 1, he was the first player to break the 2,000-yard mark in 1973, and that was in just 14 games. 2, he was a friendly face on TV for the NFL on NBC and various Hertz commercials. And in the 80s, he was in the Naked Gun series.
Drugs.
Hey, nurse,
Quick, give this man some drugs. Quick, can't you see he's in pain? Give him a shot, quickly.
The Juice is known primarily for his wacky Twitter videos where he can be found out on a golf course, waxing poetic on any number of topics from fantasy football to American politics.
I got a little getting even to do.
However, there was a period from 1994 to 2020 where he really just kind of disappeared. I tried Googling it, but I couldn't find anything. I'm still searching for the real source of that. There's plenty of things in today's NFL that wouldn't have flown back in the 70s, but that's for another time. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to my next video.